Have you ever wondered why a woman can break up with you while still calling you every night to check in, why she can say she loves you? But somehow you're the one always waiting, always adjusting, always guessing why she can tell you you're the best man she's ever known and then disappear the moment another guy walks into the room. It doesn't make sense, not at first. You think, maybe she's confused, maybe she's scared, maybe she's been hurt before. Maybe if you just stay patient, stay kind, stay available, she'll come around. She just needs time. Right. No. That's not what's happening. What's happening is this: you're ignoring what she really wants. Not because you're blind, but because you've been trained to betray your instincts. From the moment you could walk, you were told to be good, be respectful, be gentle, don't pressure her, don't assume anything, don't be selfish, be the nice guy, be her best friend, be her rock, be her emotional punching bag when things go wrong. And if she doesn't want you, be okay with that too. And you swallowed it, because it sounded noble, because you didn't want to be like the guys she complained about, because you thought love was earned through sacrifice. But here's the truth that no one had the balls to say to you. Most women aren't drawn to men who play it safe. They don't crave the man who tries to please them. They crave the man who sees through them. You think you're doing the right thing by listening to her words when what she wants is a man who can see through her mask. You believe her when she says, "I'm not ready for something serious," but she sleeps with a man that same night. You accept it when she says, "I'm not in the right headspace," but she's texting someone else when you leave. You excuse it when she says, "You're amazing, it's just me," and then she posts a photo with a guy she met last week. You want to believe her words because you're a man of logic. But women, especially the ones who toy with your sanity, don't speak with logic. They speak in emotion, and they expect you to feel the difference. They'll test you with silence, not questions. They'll draw closer when you pull away and disappear when you try to chase. They'll flirt with other men in front of you just to see if you get angry, just to see if you care enough to fight for her, or care too much to be worth respecting. Because here's the part that hurts the most. She doesn't want to feel like she's above you. She wants to feel like you could leave her but choose not to. And you're too busy proving that you'd never leave, that you'll always stay, that you're safe. But safety isn't attractive. It's useful. She'll keep you around. She'll thank you. She'll even cry on your shoulder when another guy hurts her. But she won't desire you. She won't respect you. And without respect, you become disposable. You keep thinking it's about being the better man. But what she really wants is the real man, the one who sees the game and chooses not to play. Because here's what most men never learn. A woman's true desire is not spoken. It's revealed in her tension, her delay, her inconsistencies. And your job is not to decode her chaos. It's to recognize that her chaos is a test. A test you keep failing. You fail it every time you believe her apology instead of watching her behavior. You fail it when you rush to reassure her when she threatens to leave. You fail it when you ask what's wrong instead of holding silence long enough for her to show you. And the more you fail, the more she feels the power shift. You give more, she gives less. You open up, she shuts down. You wait, and wait, and wait, until the only thing left of you is your confusion. You think you're losing her because you're not enough, but you're losing her because you never dared to be more than what she said she wanted. She never said, "Challenge me," but she respects the man who does. She never said, "Don't give in," but she follows the one who doesn't. She never said, "Make me earn your time," but she obsesses over the one who makes her wait. Because attraction isn't about logic. It's not about fairness. It's not about being the good man. It's about being the man who values himself more than her attention. But you've been taught the opposite. Taught to give. Taught to adapt. Taught to listen. No one told you that women don't want to lead the dance. That when you hesitate, she resents you for it. that when you follow her words, she loses the fire. And that's the paradox. The more you give her what she says she wants, the more she pulls away from the man you used to be. So what happens next? You keep trying harder. You think, maybe if I just do a little more, show her how much I care, she'll finally see it. Maybe if I'm more understanding, more patient, more available, she'll finally choose me. And that's the moment she starts to lose interest completely. Because now you're not the man who makes her feel, you're the man who reacts. You respond to her mood swings. You adjust to her shifting rules. You tiptoe around her chaos, hoping it makes her feel loved. But love isn't born from comfort. It's born from polarity. And polarity dies the moment you place her needs above your self-worth. Here's the psychological trap women, consciously or not, are wired to test for strength. Not physical strength, emotional resilience. That silent, grounded core that doesn't bend every time she blinks twice. That's the real currency of desire. You're stuck in the trap because you confuse kindness with value. You think if you're supportive, she'll choose you. If you stay consistent, she'll stop running. If you give everything, she'll give something back. But what she sees is different. She sees a man who's terrified to be disliked. She sees a man who's so afraid of being alone. He'll abandon his own boundaries just to keep her attention. She sees weakness where you think you're showing love. You were told women want honesty. But when you express your feelings too soon, too fully, too eagerly, she loses the spark. You were told women want connection. But when you try to talk through every issue, every shift in mood, every misunderstanding, she stops feeling anything at all. Because what she wants isn't your emotional availability, it's your emotional control. She wants to feel your presence, not your dependence, your power, not your pleading, your groundedness, not your groveling. And deep down, you feel it. You know when you're overstepping. You know when you're giving too much. You feel that gnawing emptiness after you send the long message she doesn't reply to. That hollow anxiety when she posts a story meant to provoke you and you take the bait. You're not confused. You're just refusing to accept the truth. She's not treating you like a priority because you've made her the center of your emotional world. Every time she senses that your confidence relies on her approval, you lose a little more of her desire. Because desire isn't drawn to a man who needs her. It's drawn to the man who doesn't flinch when she pulls away. That's the pattern. And she plays it over and over again, not out of cruelty, but instinct. She flirts with ambiguity because it gives her control. She dangles interest just far enough to keep you trying. She withdraws just enough to make you question yourself. And you feed the loop. You try to be more transparent. You open up, thinking it'll bring you closer. You confess your feelings, hoping for intimacy. But you're not creating intimacy. You're handing her the script and asking her to direct the play. What you don't realize is this: women don't fall for a man who reveals everything. They fall for a man who holds something back. Not because he's playing games, but because he knows his worth isn't up for debate. And when you overinvest, you give her something she never earned your emotional obedience. That's why it stings when she ignores your texts. Why it burns when she laughs harder at another guy's joke. Why it cuts when she says, "You're such a great guy," with the same tone she uses for her brother. Because she's not choosing the best man. She's choosing the man she feels most drawn to. And that draw, it doesn't come from your gifts, or your good heart, or your loyalty. It comes from your gravity, the sense that you're unshakable, that no matter how beautiful she is, how dramatic she gets, how cold she turns, you don't chase, you don't fold, you don't beg. You're centered, you're still, you're watching, not waiting. But you've been so desperate to be seen as different from the other guys that you lost what makes you a man in the first place. You think standing out means being softer, more helpful, more open. But she's not attracted to your softness. She's testing it. She wants to know, will you crumble if I push hard enough? And every time you do, she stops believing in you. Because how can she trust a man who abandons his own ground to make her feel better? The irony is brutal. The more you try to prove you're the one who gets her, the more she feels you're not the one who can hold her. You're proving your understanding, your empathy, your emotional depth. But in her eyes, all she sees is a man bending, not standing. And here's the part no one tells you. She doesn't want to be in control. Even the most independent, high-achieving, hyper-social women, they still crave a man whose inner center doesn't revolve around their approval. They want to feel something stronger than their own drama, something calmer than their own anxiety, something real when they're spinning out in emotional noise. You could be that, but you keep giving it away. You hand over your authority the moment she starts pulling away. You ask if everything's okay. You check in. You offer to talk. She didn't ask. She didn't say she wanted to fix it, but you offer it anyway. Because you've been taught that a good man takes initiative, that the masculine thing to do is to open the emotional door and invite her through. But masculinity isn't about opening your chest for her chaos. It's about staying composed no matter how much noise she makes. You can love her, but if you lose yourself every time she shifts, you're not loving her. You're obeying her instability, and she hates that more than you realize. Because it means she can't trust you when it counts. It means if she panics, you'll panic more. If she gets insecure, you'll start performing. If she tests you, you'll respond like a student begging for a passing grade. And that's when she looks elsewhere, not always for sex, not always for love, but for polarity, for that feeling she lost with you, the one that made her feel safe without controlling everything. And if another man walks in with grounded presence, she won't care how good you were. She won't remember how kind, how patient, how much you gave. She'll follow the gravity, because women don't follow logic. They follow energy. You keep thinking you can earn her trust with consistency, but trust isn't built through gestures. It's built through frame. Your frame is the invisible boundary of your self-worth. It's what tells her without words how far she can go before she crosses the line. It's what makes her feel both free and held. It's what stops the spiral. It's what centers the room. It's what makes you unforgettable. But you can't fake it, you can't script it, and you sure as hell can't build it by asking, "What do you need from me right now?" Because if you have to ask, you've already lost the frame. Real men don't ask for permission to lead emotionally. They lead by not flinching, by not apologizing for standards, by not negotiating with silence, distance, or drama. You think that if you don't react, she'll think you don't care. But when you do react, all she sees is your fear. And when you're afraid, she doesn't feel safe, she feels in charge. Which is exactly what she doesn't want. You've got it backwards. You're afraid to lose her, so you give her everything. But it's that fear of losing her that makes her want to leave. Every man who's ever said, "I gave her everything," is missing the point. She didn't want everything. She wanted something real, something you not shaped by her moods, not tailored to her wounds, not diluted to keep the peace. You gave her all your love, but none of your edges, all your presence, but none of your posture, all your affection, but none of your distance. And she felt it. That's why she pulled away. Not because you weren't enough, but because you gave too much without requiring her to meet you halfway. Because here's the law of emotional gravity. The more you orbit around her, the more she wants to escape. The more you hold your path, the more she wants to fall into it. You didn't lose her because you weren't kind enough. You lost her because you abandoned yourself. You saw her chaos and made it your mission. You felt her distance and called it your failure. You watched her test you, and instead of holding frame, you explained yourself. You chased, you folded, you tried to fix, and in doing so, You erased everything that made her feel safe with you to begin with. You were the man who saw her, but not the man who saw through her. And now, you're asking yourself why she doesn't come back, why she moved on, why she acts like you never mattered. It's because you did matter until you didn't matter to yourself. Now let's get brutally honest, because that's the only thing that will wake you up from this emotional fog. You think love is about showing up, about being consistent, about proving day after day that you're there for her, that you won't abandon her, that you're the safe one, that no matter how hard she pushes, how cold she gets, how many times she disappears, you'll still be there when she looks back. You've made yourself the emotional constant, the one who doesn't give up, the one who absorbs every mood, every insult, every test, and still smiles through it. But you're not building love. You're enabling her control. You're teaching her that she can disrespect you, and you'll respond with validation. You're showing her that no matter how she treats you, you won't walk away. And the second she knows that you're done, because women don't desire men who need them. They desire men who choose them from a place of power, not weakness. But you're scared of that power, aren't you? You don't want to be seen as controlling, or cold, or distant. You've been told that a real man shares everything, that he makes her feel emotionally safe. But you forgot one thing: women don't feel safe around men they can emotionally control. You think she'll love you more if you give her everything. But she only respects you when you withhold something. Not to manipulate, but to protect your center, your time, your attention, your mind. Because the truth is, she doesn't want to be everything to you. She wants to feel lucky to have a part of you. She wants to earn your depth, not be handed it for free. But no one ever taught you that. They taught you to be kind, not strong, to be open, not grounded, to be expressive, not selective, to be the man who understands her feelings, not the man who holds his own. And it shows. It shows in the way you check your phone 12 times before noon, in the way your heart sinks when she takes too long to reply, in the way you rewrite a message 3 times to avoid sounding needy, in the way you hold back your truth because you're afraid she'll leave. That's not confidence. That's survival. And you can't build love while you're surviving her approval. You've got to face something hard, something that hurts more than being ghosted, than being left, than being told you're not enough. The truth is, you ignored the signs. You saw the red flags. You saw the emotional games. You felt the shift when she stopped respecting you. And instead of stepping back, you leaned in. Instead of setting a boundary, you softened your voice. Instead of pulling away, you doubled down. Instead of protecting yourself, you tried to fix her mood. You thought that would save the relationship. But what it did was kill the polarity, because polarity is built on difference, not sameness, not compromise, not appeasement. She wants to feel your masculine edge, not your emotional submission. But here you are, afraid to disappoint her, afraid to walk away, afraid to say, no, this doesn't work for me. And until that changes, you'll keep repeating the same pattern with different faces. You'll keep attracting women who drain you, who breadcrumb you, who punish you for loving them too much and chase men who give them nothing. And you'll keep asking, why do I keep ending up here? You'll keep blaming her for being cold, for being unavailable, for being manipulative without seeing how you trained her to act that way. Because she doesn't start with disrespect. She discovers it's allowed. You allowed it when you didn't leave after the 3rd unanswered call. You allowed it when you kept trying after she said she needed space. You allowed it when you let her define all the terms of the relationship and told yourself that was love. But that wasn't love. That was fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of being rejected. Fear of not being chosen. So let's stop pretending it was anything else. You weren't being noble. You were being afraid. And until you confront that fear, not rationalize it, not justify it, But face it, you will never reclaim your power. Because the real shift isn't about playing games. It's not about being colder. It's not about becoming some distant alpha caricature who never shows feelings. It's about reclaiming your frame, your time, your dignity, your silence. It's about being the man who doesn't need her to choose him because he already chose himself. And here's what happens when you finally make that shift. You stop waiting for her to call. You stop decoding her messages. You stop responding to silence with effort. You stop begging for closure she never had the courage to give. You don't slam the door. You don't explode in anger. You don't post some cryptic quote about knowing your worth. You just leave the dance. Not to punish her, but because you've outgrown the music. She doesn't control your heartbeat anymore. Your value doesn't rise and fall based on her attention. You're not pacing the room wondering what you did wrong. You're not making excuses for her disrespect, her games, her mood swings, her endless, I'm just figuring things out. You see it for what it is now, not mystery, not complexity, but immaturity. A woman who hasn't built enough emotional integrity to meet you at your level. And instead of chasing, instead of rescuing, instead of analyzing, you withdraw silently, completely, unapologetically. And that's when something unexpected happens. She comes back. Not always, but often. Not because she suddenly loves you, but because she senses the power shift. For the first time, she doesn't feel your emotional leash wrapped around her waist. For the first time, she's the one wondering why you didn't check in, why you didn't fight, why you didn't react to her disappearing act. And that unsettles her because she's never seen you this way. Still, unbothered, unreachable. Now she's the one pacing. Now she's the one rewriting messages. Now she's the one asking, what happened to the guy who used to? But that guy is gone. He died the day you realized your love was real, but hers wasn't. The day you saw that you were willing to bleed for someone who couldn't even meet you halfway. The day you stopped making excuses for emotional immaturity just because it wore a beautiful face. That's when you changed. Not on the outside, you still smile, you still hold doors, you still care. But on the inside, you stopped over-explaining, you stopped apologizing for having standards, you stopped feeling guilty for walking away when your needs weren't met. You became centered, and you learned something every man must learn if he ever wants peace. There is nothing more powerful than a man who does not fear emotional withdrawal. Because the world has taught women that men will always return, that men are desperate, that men can't handle silence, that men will cave if they just ignore long enough, that one sad text will bring you back, that one I miss you will reset everything. But when you don't respond to that, when you've truly detached, the entire game falls apart. Not because you won, but because you stepped outside the arena. You no longer need her to validate you. You don't need closure. You don't need her to understand how much she hurt you. You just need your peace. And you have it now because you stopped negotiating your self-respect. You see, this is what women don't say out loud, but always feel they respect the man who doesn't flinch, who doesn't play therapist, who doesn't try to manage their chaos, who doesn't need to explain himself every time they pull away. They respect the man who holds the line, who remains firm, who walks away when he's disrespected and doesn't come back just because she looks sad in a selfie. That's not cruelty, that's strength. And strength, real masculine strength, is rare. Which is why it's so damn attractive. Because here's what no one teaches you. Women test men not because they're evil, but because they're searching for a man who can anchor them. Not with emotional begging, not with romantic gestures, but with stillness, with edge, with presence. And now, you are that man. You still feel, you still care, but you no longer betray yourself to earn connection. You no longer confuse her sadness with depth. You no longer confuse her flirting with desire. You no longer confuse her drama with intensity. You finally see it all clearly. And in that clarity, you find something that no woman can give you and no woman can take away: self-command. That unshakable sense of, I know who I am. I know what I offer, and I don't need to prove it to anyone. That's the shift. That's the edge. That's what ends the cycle. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.